Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out People of Reddit. Story 1. Neighbors tried to get us kicked out so we left. I was reading some top posts on here and realized I had a very similar story. About 12 years ago my wife and I moved after she got a job that was 20 miles away and we decided to split the distance. We were going to have a little more income and started looking for a place in sleepy beach town that was well located for our needs. My wife has always been good at charming older landlords and so, as we often had done, we just drove around looking for rent signs. We ended up finding a place with a quad of 4 buildings owned by an older lady who was living off of her rental income and lived in one of the buildings. We lived across the courtyard from her in the top story. Down below us were B&B. B&B were an older couple who lived part-time in NYC and part-time in Sleepy Beach Town. So they were unpredictably there, and when they were, often had parties. They also complained a lot about us making noise. Now to be fair, we did. Both my wife and I are tall and heavy and we were living on the second floor of a very old and creaky building. The doors didn't shut well and occasionally slammed of their own accord. I also played video games late. And the floor was really paper thin, we could hear our neighbors all the time as well. So we apologized. They complained to the landlord, who they'd known for 15 years, and never to us. We apologized directly to them and gave them our number and said to call anytime if they had a complaint. They never called. I worked on walking more quietly. I moved my consoles and gaming rig to an office on the opposite corner of the building from their bedroom and got headphones to replace my speakers. We rarely had parties or friends over, but if we did we always gave advance notice and invited the neighbors. They kept complaining to the landlord. At first she was pretty nice about it. They complained about the old tenant talking on the phone too loudly too, she told us. And even B complained once that the birds in the courtyard were too loud. It turned out B was the real problem. She complained about everything and other B just went with it. Then there was a big event. I was playing games in my office. I had headphones but it was an online game and I was talking into my headset. Suddenly there was very loud knocking on our door. Surprised, I jump up into the door. It's neighbor B. She's visibly drunk and very upset. I was too loud and she couldn't sleep. Later I found out the problem. They had company who they'd been partying with and as such she was sleeping on the floor of her office that night and thus heard me more than usual. We were asked by the landlady to come over for a conversation. It was heavily insinuated that we were going to be asked to leave. We were told basically either you leave or they do, and I've known them longer so I have to pick them. We just asked that B&B, who had never talked to us directly, show up to this meeting so that we could talk directly. We're told that's fine. So in the meanwhile my wife and I both start looking for other apartments. And I start reading up our rights. I didn't really know what I was talking about, but I had enough to make our old landlady worried. Also, the other neighbors found out what was going on, and one of them in particular, who had heard the whole saga, got very upset with the landlady and made it clear she was ready to support us and fight this however she could. Very fortunately, my wife worked her magic again and we found another apartment that was immediately available. The new landlord loved us. The apartment was bigger. It was on the beach. It was only slightly more expensive. We were doing well and could afford an upgrade. So finally the day of the meeting arrives. We went over to the landlady's unit and immediately I knew how this will go down. B&B aren't showing. Their play was to harass the old lady until she does what they want, and it was working, so why bother? The landlady knew it was shitty and clearly felt very uncomfortable about it all, but they're basically family and she's not going to do anything about it. So we told her, we're going to make this easy for you. We're moving out this week, no notice, and we want our full deposit back and a promise that you'll say nice stuff about us if we ever put this apartment down as a past residence. She's relieved and agrees even though we were expected to give 30 days notice. We move. The new apartment is great. We lived there 6 years and despite likely being under market price when we got it, the landlord never raised our rent. We plotted to get back B&B. We were never really serious, but we started an in-joke with friends about marching by the old apartment banging pots and pans at odd hours. It turned out we didn't have to. Incensed neighbor kept us in the loop. We were paying a bit too much and it took the landlady months to find a new tenant. This was her livelihood, and apparently the loss of income from us leaving suddenly caused some strain on her relationship with B&B. Finally, after lowering the rent, she found a tenant, a 40-year-old, recently divorced man. The incensed neighbor gave us glorious details about the new tenant carrying his massive, brand new stereo system up into the apartment. A month later, after living there for 15 years, B&B moved out. Story 2. Should I be petty? Long story short, my 27F ex-girlfriend broke up with me, 27M, suddenly about 7 months ago. I'm talking about out of the blue. I didn't see her for one day and went immediately cold. We talked about marriage, kids. It was honestly beautiful. First time in my life I felt like this was it. I'm a loving guy with much to give, and she made me think of a forever future with her. Prior to meeting her, she dated a girl for 6 years. She had a work male friend that became very close to her and my ex. They would hang out a lot, the three together. My ex found out a bit later that her then girlfriend and male friend were having sex before her back. She was distraught and couldn't believe the backstabbing that had happened. Heartbroken and all, she was on the road to healing, and we ran into each other via mutual friends. What started off as just cool people getting to know each other quickly developed to falling for each other hard. We had the same values, mindset, heart, friendly attitude, etc. I fell hard and fast. She still was reluctant because of her past, and I understood, so I gave her space here and there. We end up being official and it was amazing. All in all, from the day I started hanging out via mutual friends to our breakup was 16 months. Will she suddenly broke up with my after hanging out with her mom and mom's best friend. I asked her what happened that night the next day when she broke up with me, but said nothing, and she was feeling like that. For 7 freaking months I was thinking she was working on herself, healing, just focusing on herself entirely because she's never been single for a long period of time. Since there was no reason to break up, I still had mad hope because I knew we were deeply in love together. As of 3 hours ago, I find out she's been seeing the same dude that broke up her relationship with her ex. She's been dating the male co-worker friend of her ex-girlfriend that ended up dating her ex-girlfriend for 16 months. They've been seeing each other for exactly 7 months. A huge part of me is relieved because he's a low-key loser and she is so dumb for all that, but I'm just dumbfounded at her decision and my stupidity for hoping for a reconciliation. Anyways, had to get it off my chest. These hoes ain't loyal, and yet, that's wild. My close friends have thought I've been over her for months now, but in reality I couldn't stop thinking about her until 3 hours ago. Just crazy stuff. The only fair thing would be for me to have sex with the ex of both of these people now. Just such a doozy. I'm down if she hits me up, but I'm going to stay away from this one. Story 3. I prevented a former friend from adopting a kitten. Kylie and I became friends when I moved to the city for college. I use the term friends loosely. I was still young and ignorant, and had yet to learn that nice is not synonymous with kind. The friendship officially ended when she was promoted at work. At the celebratory dinner with our friends group, she announced that she wouldn't be able to spend time with us going forward. Being promoted meant she had to spend more time with important people. A few people laughed, but she reiterated, "I'm not joking. I like you guys, but I'm very important now. I can't keep associating with people I know from college." I wasn't disappointed, and this gave me a convenient, questions-free exit. After graduation, Kylie's parents bought a condo for her. She adopted a kitten and had it declawed because her furniture is more important and declawing doesn't hurt cats. She eventually dropped the cat off with her parents for 2 reasons. In her own words, she is very important and needs to network more, and now that she worked hard for her degree in home ownership, she wanted a spouse. Nobody wants to date a woman with cats. So Etta, the cat, has to live with my parents. It's not a big deal. Cats aren't smart anyways. She won't even remember me. Not even a year later, a friend who follows her on social media saw a post. Kylie found the perfect new addition to the family. She and her boyfriend love cats, so they submitted an application for a kitten at local rescue. I called the rescue during my lunch break and gave them the information I had, that she declaws her cats, and rehomed her previous one because it didn't fit with her lifestyle. I said that I could not, in good conscience, have this knowledge and at least let them know. Kylie didn't end up getting the kitten, nor any other kitten from that rescue. I'm realistic, so I can imagine her next steps. At least I know I thwarted this attempt. Story 4. Have fun, Sparkles. My stepmom once thought I said something I didn't say, and smacked me in the face for it. Obviously big deal, so I worked out a plan to make her clean freak self suffer. I took her shoes and poured whole cans of glitter I collected all over the bottom of her shoes. Quite a bit stuck and I put them back in place. So for the next few weeks Sparkles would be all over our carpet because she didn't take off her shoes in the house. I'm well aware Sparkles are the herpes of crafts and got everywhere. I enjoyed seeing the glitter carpet and watching her try to vacuum it all up. Story 5. Crop dusting, my worst colleague. I work with a woman who is an abomination. She is never where she is supposed to be, yells constantly, reeks like cigarettes, and talks back whenever you ask for basic help like getting office supplies from the locked storage room. It escalated to the point that people are calling in complaints and I was involuntarily dragged into the investigation. Since then she is extra rude to me. Well, guess what, bitch? I feel like garbage this week and my stomach is a mess. I've been crop dusting her all day with sewage bombs. Expected to continue all week. Story 6. Hope you like your steak rare. So first off, let me start by saying my father is a piece of work. I am low contact with him now as I've decided to stop wasting my time on people who don't care about me just because they're family. Anyhow, this takes place about 4 years ago. So some background before the story. My father, again, a pretty terrible person, cheated on my stepmother, not legally but they were together 20 years. When they split up, he kept trying to force a relationship between me and his new chick. Now, I love my stepmother more than my father, if I'm honest. She helped raise me, treated me like her own flesh and blood, was a real proper mother to me. She's a lovely woman and I still consider her family even though she isn't with my father anymore. Now to the story. For a while after the split, I tried to keep a relationship with my father. Partly because he's my father. But mostly because my partner and I had just had our first child and I wanted him to know his family. My father likes steak. It's been common knowledge my whole life. If you want to make him happy, buy him steak. Now, over the course of my 32 years, I've become a pretty good cook. I'm not a professional by any means but I know how to turn out some good cooking. So for Father's Day, I invited my father over to have a steak dinner. Now when I issued this invitation I made it clear I was inviting only him. But through the whole conversation, he kept including his new chick. I told him flat out I didn't want her to join us. Then he hits me with, well, if I can come without her. So whatever, I told him fine, bring her. But now I'm mad. I have to cook for this woman I don't like. So instead of the high-quality steaks I intended to purchase, we bought some pretty basic low-grade steaks. Now another point against my father is he's one of those I only eat my steak well done people. And so is his new chick. Cue the pettiness. I made my meal, as intended. But when I served up my steaks, I made sure every one of them was medium rare, at best. Lucky me, my partner and I like some pink to our steak. I prefer a medium but I was willing to take the hit if it meant making sure I got my point across. Nothing says you weren't invited, get out quite like serving an underdone steak to a leather eater. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.